You know that moment when your entire world shifts on its axis? When something so ordinary becomes extraordinary that you can't help but wonder if fate has been orchestrating everything all along. That's what happened to me on a rainy Thursday evening in October. My roommate asked me for help with something simple, something completely innocent. But what followed changed everything I thought I knew about friendship, about vulnerability, and about love. My name is Adrian, and this is the story of how I fell for the one person I thought I could never have. The apartment smelled like rain and old books when I pushed through the door, shaking droplets from my jacket. Our place wasn't much a two-bedroom walk-up in the city's arts district, with creaky floorboards and windows that rattled when the wind picked up, but it was home. More importantly, it was affordable, which mattered when you're a graphic designer still building your portfolio and your roommate is a struggling musician. Adrian, that you? Ethan's voice drifted from his bedroom, slightly muffled. Yeah, just got back from the coffee shop, I called out, toeing off my sneakers. The storm caught me halfway home. I'm soaked. I'd been living with Ethan Parker for 8 months. We'd met through a mutual friend who knew I needed a place after my previous roommate's situation imploded. From the first time Ethan smiled at me this genuine, warm smile that crinkled the corners of his hazel eyes, he knew we'd get along. What I didn't know was how hard I'd fall for him. Ethan was the kind of person who drew people in without trying. Tall and lean, with perpetually tousled dark brown hair that he'd run his fingers through when he was thinking. He had this effortless style vintage band tees, worn jeans, and a collection of flannel shirts that he wore like armor. But it was his passion for music that really defined him. He could spend hours with his guitar, lost in melodies that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside him, and I was just his roommate, his straight roommate, so I'd led him to believe. I hung my jacket on the hook by the door and padded toward the kitchen, planning to make tea. That's when Ethan's door opened. Hey, Adrian. His voice had that particular quality it got when he was nervous about something. Can I talk to you for a minute? I turned to find him standing in his doorway, barefoot in gray sweatpants and a faded Radiohead shirt. His hair was more disheveled than usual, and there was something in his expression I couldn't quite read. Anxiety? Anticipation? Sure, what's up? I tried to keep my voice casual, even as my heart did that annoying flutter it always did when he looked at me directly. He bit his lower lip. A habit I'd noticed he had when he was working up courage. I need your help with something. It's kind of weird, and I totally understand if you say no, but you're literally the only person I can ask. Now, he had my full attention. I moved closer, studying his face. Ethan, you're starting to freak me out a little. What's going on? He took a deep breath, then gestured toward his room. Can we talk in here? I need to show you something. Every rational part of my brain told me this was a bad idea. Going into Ethan's bedroom, while he looked at me with those vulnerable eyes, while I was already fighting feelings I shouldn't have, it was asking for trouble. But I nodded anyway, because I'd never been able to say no to him. His room was exactly what you'd expect from a musician. Organized chaos. Sheet music scattered across his desk, his acoustic and electric guitars on stands, a keyboard tucked in the corner. The walls were covered with concert posters and photographs, snapshots of open mic nights, jam sessions, moments captured in time. His bed was unmade, the deep blue comforter twisted like he'd been tossing and turning. Okay, so here's the thing, Ethan started, running his hand through his hair. You know how I've been working on new material for the showcase next month? I nodded. The showcase was a big deal, local venues, and even a few label scouts would be there. Ethan had been preparing for weeks. Well, I wrote this new song. It's different from my usual stuff. More personal. More vulnerable. He picked up his acoustic guitar, holding it like a shield. But there's a problem. What kind of problem? He sat on the edge of his bed, and I leaned against his desk, trying to maintain some distance. Trying to ignore how intimate this felt, being in his private space while the rain drummed against the windows. The song is about wanting something you think you can't have, he said quietly, his fingers absently strumming a soft chord. About being afraid to reach for it because you might lose everything if you do. The way he said it sent a shiver through me. There was weight behind those words, layers of meaning I wasn't sure I wanted to unpack. "It sounds beautiful," I managed. "But I'm still not sure what you need help with. I need to perform it convincingly," Ethan said, finally meeting my eyes. "And the thing is, I've never actually experienced what I'm singing about. Not really. I can write the words, compose the melody, but when I try to perform it, it feels hollow, like I'm faking it. So what are you asking?" He set the guitar aside, and I watched his chest rise and fall with a deep breath. "I need you to help me understand the feeling. I need to know what it's like to be close to someone you want but can't have. To feel that tension, that electricity, that fear and desire all mixed together." My mouth went dry. "Ethan, I'm not sure I understand what you're asking me to do. I'm asking you to help me feel something real," he said. And there was such raw honesty in his voice that it made my chest ache. "Even if it's just pretend. Even if it's just for the sake of the song." The room suddenly felt too small, too warm. The rain outside seemed to fade into background noise as I stared at him, trying to process what he was suggesting. "Do you want me to?" "What?" "Pretend to be someone you want." "I know it sounds crazy," he said quickly. "And like I said, totally understand if you think I'm insane. But you're an artist too, right? You understand about needing to feel something authentic, to create something authentic." He wasn't wrong. As a designer, I knew the importance of emotional truth in creative work. But this was different. This was dangerous territory for someone who was already half in love with their roommate. "Why me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Ethan looked down at his hands, turning them over like he was searching for an answer written on his palms. "Because I trust you. Because you get it. And because," he trailed off, seeming to reconsider his words, "because I feel safe with you." Safe. The word landed between us like a stone in still water, sending ripples in every direction. I should have said no. Should have made some excuse about crossing boundaries or keeping our friendship uncomplicated. But instead I heard myself ask, what exactly would this involve? Hope flickered across his features. "Nothing you're not comfortable with. I need to understand the physical and emotional experience of being close to someone that way. The anticipation, the almost touches, the way your heart races when someone looks at you like you're everything they want." Every word he spoke felt like it was pulling me deeper into dangerous waters. But I was already drowning in feelings for him anyway. What was a little more depth? "Okay," I said, surprising myself. "I'll help you." The smile that broke across Ethan's face was worth every risk I was about to take. Over the next few days, we settled into a strange new routine. In the mornings, we were still normal roommates making coffee, discussing whose turn it was to buy groceries, arguing about what to watch on Netflix. But in the evenings after dinner, we'd retreat to his room for what Ethan started calling research sessions. The first real session happened on Saturday night. I'd spent the entire day anxious, wondering what I'd agreed to, questioning my own sanity. By the time Ethan knocked on my door around 8, my nerves were frayed. "You ready?" he asked, that soft smile on his lips. "As I'll ever be," I replied, following him to his room. He'd cleaned up a bit, moved some things around. Soft lighting from his desk lamp created warm pools of shadow. He'd even lit a candle, something that smelled like cedar and rain. The atmosphere felt intentional, carefully crafted. "So, I've been thinking about how to approach this," Ethan began, settling on his bed and patting the space beside him. "The song is about longing, right? About being so close to someone but held back by fear or circumstance. So I thought we could start with just proximity." I sat down next to him, hyper-aware of every inch between us. Even with space separating our bodies, I could feel his warmth, catch the scent of his shampoo, something clean and slightly woody. I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. What does it feel like to be near someone when there's tension between you?" He shifted slightly, turning toward me. When every small movement feels loaded with meaning, I turned to face him too, and suddenly we were closer than we'd ever been. Close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his hazel eyes, could count the barely visible freckles across his nose. "It feels like this," I said honestly, "because what else could I do?" Like the air itself is charged. Like gravity shifted and you're the center of it? Ethan's eyes widened slightly. Yeah. I swallowed hard. Your heart starts beating faster. You become aware of every breath, every small movement. You want to close the distance, but you're terrified of what happens if you do. Show me, he whispered. So I did. I let myself lean in, just slightly, closing a fraction of the distance between us. Not enough to touch, but enough that I could feel the warmth of his breath on my face. Enough that if either of us moved even an inch, we'd collide. I watched his pupils dilate, heard the slight catch in his breathing. Like this? He asked, his voice rough. Exactly like this. We stayed there, frozen in that moment of almost touching. The tension was so thick I could taste it, electric and sweet and terrifying. My hand rested on the bed between us, and I saw his fingers twitch, like he wanted to reach for me but was holding himself back. What are you thinking? Ethan asked, eyes searching mine. The truth sat on the tip of my tongue. I'm thinking about how badly I want to kiss you. How I've wanted to kiss you since the first week we met. How this is torture and bliss all mixed together. But I couldn't say that. So instead, I said, I'm thinking about how fragile this moment is. How one wrong move could shatter it, but staying still is its own kind of agony. God, Ethan breathed. That's perfect. That's exactly what the song needs to convey. He pulled back slightly, breaking the spell, and I felt the loss of his nearness like a physical thing. He reached for his phone, typing notes furiously. The way you described it, gravity shifting, the air being charged, that's beautiful. I can work with that. His enthusiasm was infectious, even as my heart still raced from our proximity. We spent the next hour like that, exploring different aspects of longing. He'd ask me questions about what desire felt like, how anticipation built in your chest, what it was like to want to touch someone but hold yourself back. And I answered as honestly as I dared, pulling from every moment I'd spent watching him, wanting him, pretending I didn't. At one point, he asked me to demonstrate what an almost touch felt like. I raised my hand slowly, bringing it close to his face without making contact. Hovering my palm near his cheek, close enough that I could feel his warmth, but not his skin. It's like this, I said softly. Close enough to feel the heat between you. Close enough that you can imagine what it would feel like to close that final distance. But the not touching is almost more intense than touching would be. Ethan closed his eyes and I watched his throat work as he swallowed. Adrian, he said, and my name on his lips sounded different somehow, heavier. Can I try? I nodded, not trusting my voice. He lifted his hand, mirroring what I'd done, bringing it close to my face. His fingers hovered near my jaw, and I could feel the barely there warmth of his skin. Every nerve ending in my body seemed to focus on that point of almost contact. Like this. He whispered. Yes. He stayed like that. His hand suspended near my face, my entire being focused on those few centimeters of charged air between us. I could feel my pulse pounding, could see the rapid rise and fall of his chest. Then, so slowly I might have imagined it, his thumb brushed against my cheekbone. The lightest possible touch, barely there, but it sent electricity coursing through me. Ethan, I breathed, and he pulled his hand away like he'd been burned. Sorry, he said quickly. Got carried away. Was that too much? Too much? It wasn't nearly enough. But I couldn't tell him that. It's fine, I managed. That's exactly what you wanted to feel, right? That intensity. He nodded, but there was something in his expression I couldn't read. Something that looked almost like confusion, or maybe realization, he said quietly. Yeah, that as research sessions became a regular thing. 3, sometimes 4 nights a week, we'd meet in his room to explore the physical and emotional landscape of longing. Each session pushed boundaries a little further. One night he asked me what it felt like to have someone play with your hair. I sat between his legs while he ran his fingers through my dark strands, gently tugging, experimenting with different touches. My eyes fluttered closed, and I had to bite my lip to keep from making sounds that would give away just how much his touch affected me. Another night, we practiced eye contact, how long you could hold someone's gaze before it became too intense. How the meaning shifted depending on proximity and context. We sat facing each other, knees almost touching. staring into each other's eyes until my chest felt tight and my skin buzzed with awareness. "This is crazy," Ethan said during one of those moments, a slightly breathless laugh escaping him. "I feel like I'm going to combust. That's the point, isn't it?" I managed, even though I was experiencing the same overwhelming sensation. "To feel something so intense you can channel it into the music?" "Yeah, but I didn't expect it to feel so," he trailed off, seeming to struggle for words. "So what?" "So real." The word hung between us, heavy with implications neither of us seemed willing to examine too closely. But I was examining it, late at night when I couldn't sleep. Lying in my bed, replaying every touch, every glance, every moment of almost contact, I kept telling myself this was just research, just helping a friend. But my heart knew better. I was falling deeper in love with Ethan Parker every single day. And these sessions were both heaven and hell. It was during our session, 2 weeks before his showcase, that everything shifted. Ethan had been working on a specific verse. About the moment desire becomes impossible to ignore. He wanted to understand what that tipping point felt like, that instant when restraint crumbles. "I think we need to push further," he said, and there was determination in his voice. "Everything we've done so far has been about holding back, but the song also needs to capture the moment you stop holding back." My heart hammered against my ribs. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we find that edge," he said, "where wanting becomes action. Even if it's just for a second." I should have said no. Should have recognized that we were about to cross a line we couldn't uncross. But I'd never been good at denying him anything. "Okay," I whispered. Ethan moved closer on the bed, close enough that our knees touched. He looked nervous but resolute, like he was about to jump off a cliff and was trying to convince himself it was a good idea. "Tell me what you want," he said softly. "Right now, in this moment? What do you want to do?" The question felt like a trap and an invitation all at once. My eyes dropped to his lips before I could stop them, and when I looked back up, I found him watching me with an intensity that stole my breath. "I want." The words stuck in my throat. But I'd come this far. "I want to know what you taste like." The confession hung in the air between us, raw and honest and terrifying. Ethan's breath hitched. "Adrian, you asked what I wanted," I said, my voice rough. "That's the truth. But it's just for the research, right? Just to understand the feeling?" I was giving him an out, a way to frame this as anything other than what it was actually becoming. He nodded slowly, but his eyes never left mine. "Just for the research." Then, with agonizing slowness, Ethan leaned in. Time seemed to slow as Ethan moved closer. I could count each heartbeat, each shallow breath. The space between us compressed until I could feel the whisper of his exhalation against my lips. "Last chance to back out," he murmured, his voice barely audible over the rain that had started outside. Instead of answering, I closed the final distance. The first touch of his lips against mine was gentle, tentative, a question rather than a statement. Soft and warm and utterly perfect. For a heartbeat, we stayed like that, barely moving, just feeling the connection of this simple contact. Then something shifted. Ethan's hand came up to cut my jaw, his thumb stroking my cheekbone, and the kiss deepened. My hands found his waist, fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt, pulling him closer. All the weeks of tension, of almost touches and loaded glances, poured into this moment. His lips parted, and I tasted mint and something sweeter, something uniquely him. The kiss went from tentative to searching, from gentle to desperate. My hand slid up his back, feeling the warmth of him through the thin cotton. Feeling his muscles tense under my touch, Ethan made a sound low in his throat, something between a gasp and a moan. It sent fire racing through my veins. His fingers threaded through my hair, tugging slightly, angling my head for better access. I kissed him harder, pouring weeks of pent-up longing into every movement of my lips against his. We were lost in each other, in the taste and feel and overwhelming rightness of it. I pulled him closer until he was practically in my lap, until I could feel every line of his body against mine. His heart pounded against my chest, matching the frantic rhythm of my own. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Ethan's lips were swollen, his eyes dark with desire and something else, something that looked like wonder mixed with fear.
Alex.
He started. His voice wrecked. Yeah, I agreed. Because I couldn't form a more coherent response. We stared at each other. The magnitude of what just happened settling over us. This wasn't research anymore. This wasn't about a song. This was real, and we both knew it. Adrian, Ethan, began, but then seemed to lose his nerve. He pulled back, putting space between us, and I felt the loss of his warmth like a physical ache. I should probably write this down. While it's fresh, for the song, my stomach dropped. He was retreating, pulling back behind the excuse of artistic research. I watched him grab his notebook, watched his hands shake slightly as he started scribbling notes, and I felt something inside me crack. Right, I said, my voice flat. For the song, I stood up, needing distance, needing air. I'm gonna go to bed. Let me know if you need anything else. Adrien. Wait, but I was already at the door. I couldn't stay in that room. Couldn't watch him pretend that Kiss was just research when it had felt like the most real thing I'd ever experienced. I made it to my room, closed the door, and leaned against it, my legs suddenly weak. I touched my lips, still able to feel the ghost of his kiss, and fought the urge to either laugh or cry. What had I done? What had we done? The next few days were awkward in ways I couldn't have imagined. Ethan tried to act normal, making small talk about his music, asking about my design projects, but there was a tension between us now that hadn't existed before. We'd crossed a line, and neither of us seemed to know how to find our way back. We didn't schedule any more research sessions. The excuse simply disappeared, and with it, our comfortable routine. I missed him, missed the easy friendship we'd had before I'd agreed to help him. Missed the version of us that existed before I'd tasted his lips and felt his hands in my hair. I threw myself into work, taking on extra freelance projects to keep busy, anything to avoid sitting in the living room, hyper-aware of every sound coming from Ethan's room. Every moment I knew he was just on the other side of the wall. It was Marcus, my best friend and the one who'd introduced me to Ethan in the first place, who finally called me out. Okay, what's going on? He demanded over coffee at our favorite cafe. You've been weird for days, and when I texted Ethan to see if he wanted to grab drinks, he gave me some lame excuse about working on his showcase. You two have a fight? I stared into my latte, watching the foam slowly dissolve. Something like that, Adrian. Marcus leaned forward, his expression serious. You know you can talk to me, right? Is this about... He trailed off meaningfully, and I knew what he was asking. Marcus was one of the few people who knew I was gay, who knew I'd been nursing feelings for my roommate since almost the beginning. We kissed, I said quietly. Marcus's eyes went wide. You what? When? How? I thought Ethan was straight. So did I. I ran my hand through my hair, frustrated. He asked me to help him with a song. Said he needed to understand longing and desire for the music. So we did these sessions, practicing proximity, tension, all that. And then it escalated, and we kissed, and it was amazing. Marcus supplied when I struggled for words. Earth-shattering, I corrected. But afterward he pulled back, acted like it was just research. And now, everything's weird, and I don't know what to do. Marcus was quiet for a moment, processing. Then he said something I didn't expect. Have you considered that maybe Ethan is freaking out because it meant something to him too? What? Think about it. Straight guys don't typically ask their male roommates to help them explore desire. They don't spend weeks doing intimacy exercises. And they definitely don't kiss like it's earth-shattering, unless something real is happening. Marcus fixed me with a knowing look. Adrian, I think Ethan might be figuring some things out about himself, and he's terrified. The possibility hadn't really occurred to me. I'd been so caught up in my own feelings, my own fear of rejection, that I hadn't considered what this might mean from Ethan's perspective. But what if I'm wrong? I asked, what if I read everything wrong and bringing it up ruins our friendship completely? What if you're right, and not bringing it up means you both miss out on something incredible? The night of Ethan's showcase arrived faster than I expected. The venue was a converted warehouse in the Arts District, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. I arrived early, finding a spot near the back where I could see the stage but remain relatively inconspicuous. The place filled up quickly: musicians, music lovers, industry people in their carefully casual attire. I spotted a few faces I recognized from Ethan's open mic nights, people who'd been following his journey. I hadn't seen Ethan in 2 days. He'd been staying at his friend Dev's place, supposedly for last-minute rehearsals, but I suspected it was also about avoiding me. The distance hurt, but I understood it. We needed space to process whatever this was between us. When Ethan took the stage, my breath caught. He looked incredible: dark jeans, a fitted black shirt, his hair artfully messy, but it was the expression on his face that got me. He looked nervous but determined, vulnerable but strong. "Hey everyone," he said into the mic, his voice filling the space. "Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm Ethan Parker, and I've got some new material to share with you." Started with some of his older songs, the ones I'd heard him practice 100 times. They were good, showcasing his skill with melody and his honest lyrics. The crowd responded well, swaying along, some singing the choruses they knew. Then he paused, taking a deep breath. "This next song is different. It's new, and it's personal. I wrote it about wanting something I was afraid to reach for. About the moment you realize fear is the only thing standing between you and what you want." My heart started pounding. This was it, the song we'd been working toward. Ethan's fingers found the opening chords, and the melody was haunting, beautiful. Then he started singing, and every word felt like it was directed straight at me. Your gravity shifted my world off its axis, every breath, every glance. Practiced madness, standing at the edge of almosts and maybes, caught between courage and all of my safeties. The lyrics were everything we'd talked about, all the feelings we'd explored during our sessions, but they were also more. They were raw and honest in a way that made my chest tight. I traced the ghost of your touch on my skin, memorized the taste of what might have been, but staying silent is its own kind of falling, and I'm tired of ignoring. What's calling around me? The audience was transfixed. You could have heard a pin drop. But all I could focus on was Ethan, the way his eyes scanned the crowd until they found mine and locked on. So I'll take the risk. Let the cards fall where they may, 'cause living in the almost is no way to stay. I'm stepping off the edge. Here's my confession. You're not just a muse. You're my obsession, my eyes stung with unexpected tears. The song was beautiful and devastating and brave. And unless I was completely misreading everything, it was about us. About me. When the final chord faded, there was a moment of absolute silence. Then the room erupted in applause. People were on their feet, cheering, some visibly moved. But Ethan's eyes never left mine. He played a few more songs, but I barely heard them. My mind was reeling, my heart racing. When his set ended and the next artist took the stage, I made my way toward the backstage area. I found Ethan in a small room off to the side, packing up his guitar. He looked up when I entered, and the vulnerability in his expression nearly undid me. "Adrian," he said softly. "That song I started, then had to stop and clear my throat." "Ethan, that song was about you," he finished. All of it. Every word. We stared at each other across the small space, and I could feel us standing at a precipice. Everything we said next would determine which direction we fell. "I'm sorry," Ethan continued, setting his guitar aside. "I'm sorry I freaked out after we kissed. I'm sorry I've been avoiding you. I didn't know how to process what I was feeling." "What are you feeling?" I asked, needing to hear him say it. He took a step closer, terrified, confused, but also more certain about something than I've ever been. Another step. "When I asked you to help me with the song, I told myself it was just artistic research. But deep down, I think I knew. I think some part of me was looking for an excuse to be close to you." "Ethan, I've never been with a guy before," he said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I've never even thought about it. Or maybe I did, but I pushed it down because it was easier to pretend. But then there was you, and suddenly, I couldn't pretend anymore. Every session we did, every moment of almost touching eye, wasn't just researching for a song. I was figuring out how I felt about you. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear anything else. "And how do you feel about me?" Ethan closed the remaining distance between us, reaching up to cup my face in his hands. His touch was gentle, reverent, and I could feel a slight tremor in his fingers. "I feel like I've been writing songs about you since the day we met and didn't even realize it," he said. "I feel like kissing you was both the scariest and most right thing I've ever done. I feel like I'm standing on the edge of something huge and terrifying. And the only thing that scares me more than jumping is the thought of walking away." "Then don't walk away," I whispered. "Adrian, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have this figured out." I can't promise. I cut him off with a kiss, pouring everything I felt into it. All the weeks of longing, the fear, the hope, the absolute certainty that whatever this was between us was worth the risk. Ethan responded immediately, his arms wrapping around me, pulling me close. This kiss was different from the first, less tentative, more sure. It was a beginning rather than an experiment, a promise rather than a question. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I rested my forehead against his. "I don't need promises," I said. "I just need you to be honest. To figure this out with me instead of running away from it." "I can do that," Ethan said, and the relief in his voice was palpable. "I want to do that." We left the venue together, hands linked, and it felt monumental. Every step was a choice, a statement. This is real. This matters. We're in this together. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and shining under the streetlights. We walked slowly, neither of us wanting to rush, both of us needing to talk. "So full disclosure," Ethan said, as we wandered through the quiet streets, "I have no idea how to do this. How to be. Whatever we're being, you think I'm an expert?" I laughed softly. I've dated exactly 3 guys in my life, and none of those relationships lasted more than a few months. "I'm figuring this out too. But you've known you were gay for a while, right?" I nodded. "Since I was 15. "But knowing your orientation doesn't automatically make you good at relationships?" Ethan was quiet for a moment. "Can I ask you something? When did you start having feelings for me? Was it recent, or—" I squeezed his hand. "I think I started falling for you around week 2 of living together. You were playing guitar at like midnight, and I came out to tell you to keep it down because I had an early meeting. But then you started playing this song and original, something sad and beautiful, and I just stood there listening. You looked up, saw me, and instead of stopping, you smiled and kept playing. Like you were playing for me." "I remember that," Ethan said softly. "I remember thinking you looked beautiful standing there in your pajamas, half annoyed but also enchanted. I told myself I was just appreciating an attractive roommate, but maybe it was more than that even then." We reached our building and climbed the stairs to our apartment. Inside, everything looked the same, but it felt different. Changed. The air between us was charged with possibility. "Do you want some tea?" I offered, falling back on familiar routines to ground myself. "Actually," Ethan said, "I was hoping we could talk more." "Really talk? About what this means, what we want, how we move forward?" We settled on the couch, angled toward each other. The lamp cast warm light across Ethan's features, highlighting the uncertainty and hope in his expression. "I'm attracted to you," Ethan started. "Deeply, intensely attracted to you. But I'm also confused because this is new territory for me. I don't know if I'm gay or bi or somewhere else on the spectrum. All I know is that when I'm with you, everything feels right in a way it never has before." "You don't have to figure it all out tonight," I assured him. "Sexual orientation can be fluid. You don't need a label unless you want one. What about you?" He asked, "What do you want from this?" "From us?" I took a moment to gather my thoughts. "I want to see where this goes without putting pressure on it. I want to be able to kiss you without it being an experiment. I want us to figure out what we are to each other organically. But I also want honesty. If you start feeling uncertain or scared, I need you to talk to me instead of pulling away." "I can do that," Ethan said. "I want to do that." He reached out, his hand finding mine, fingers interlacing. Such a simple gesture, but it sent warmth flooding through me. "Can I kiss you again?" he asked, a shy smile playing at his lips. Instead of answering, I leaned in and captured his mouth with mine. This kiss continued 10:32 amours, slow, exploratory, learning each other without the urgency of before. Ethan's hand came up to cradle my jaw, his thumb stroking my cheekbone with a tenderness that made my heart ache in the best way. We kissed until we were both breathless, until the world narrowed down to just the two of us and the feeling of being exactly where we belonged. The first few weeks of our relationship were a careful dance of discovery. We were still roommates, still friends, but now there was this additional layer of intimacy that we were learning to navigate together. Ethan was tentative at first, clearly working through his own internalized assumptions about masculinity and desire, but he was also remarkably open, willing to communicate his fears and uncertainties instead of letting them build into walls between us. Keep having these moments where my brain tries to tell me this is weird, he admitted one night as we lay on his bed, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my arm. Not bad. Weird. Just unfamiliar. And then I remember how happy I feel when I'm with you. And it all makes sense again. That's normal, I assured him. You're rewiring years of assumptions. It takes time. Does it bother you that I'm still figuring this out? I propped myself up on my elbow so I could look at him. What bothers me is when you hold things in and let them fester. As long as you're talking to me, as long as we're working through it together, I'm okay with the uncertainty. He pulled me down for a kiss, slow and sweet. What did I do to deserve you? You asked for help, I said with a smile, and I was foolish enough to say yes. We spent our evenings exploring this new dynamic. Some nights were about physical intimacy, making out on the couch, until we were both breathless, learning what made each other gasp and moan. Ethan was an attentive lover, curious and enthusiastic, wanting to know every way to make me feel good. Other nights were quieter. We'd cook together, arguing playfully about whether garlic belonged in everything my position, or should be used sparingly, Ethan's tragically wrong opinion. We'd watch movies, curled up together, Ethan's fingers playing with my hair in a way. It made me feel cherished. He introduced me to his music friends as his boyfriend, and the pride in his voice when he said it made my heart soar. I brought him to Marcus's birthday party. Watching him charm my friends while keeping his hand casually on my lower back filled me with a warmth I'd never experienced before, but it wasn't all easy. There were moments of friction, growing pains as we learned to be more than just roommates. It happened about 6 weeks into our relationship. Ethan had been getting more attention after the showcased potential management interest, offers to play at bigger venues. It was exciting and well-deserved, but it also meant he was busier, more stressed. I tried to be supportive, understanding when he had to cancel plans or stay out late networking. But when he forgot we had plans for our 2-month anniversary, something I'd mentioned multiple times, my patience finally snapped. I'm sorry, he said, when he stumbled in at midnight, smelling like beer and cigarette smoke from the venue. The meeting ran long, and then Dev wanted to introduce me to this producer, and I just lost track of time. You lost track of time, I repeated, my voice flat. Ethan, I texted you 3 times. Called you twice. I made your favorite dinner. I waited. The hurt in my voice seemed to finally register. Shit, Adrian, I'm so sorry. You just what? Got so caught up in your exciting new opportunities that you forgot about me? The words came out harsher than I intended, but they'd been building all evening. That's not fair, Ethan said, his own frustration rising. You know how important this is to me? This is my career, my dream. I thought you'd understand. I do understand. What I don't understand is why understanding means I'm supposed to be okay with being an afterthought. We stared at each other, both hurt and angry, neither wanting to back down. Maybe, Ethan said quietly, dangerously, this was a mistake. Maybe we moved too fast and now it's all getting complicated. The words hit me like a physical blow. Is that what you really think? He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I'd come to recognize. I don't know what I think. I just know I can't handle feeling guilty every time I prioritize my music. You knew who I was when we started this. And you knew who you were getting involved with, I shot back. Someone who values being treated with respect, who wants to be more than just convenient when you have free time. Ethan's expression shifted, the anger draining away, leaving only exhaustion. I need some space, he said. I'm going to crash at Dev's tonight. He grabbed a few things and left, and I stood in the middle of our apartment, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. I didn't sleep that night. I replayed the fight over and over, analyzing every word, trying to figure out where things had gone so wrong. By morning, I was exhausted and miserable. Questioning everything, Marcus called around noon, somehow sensing I needed him. Talk to me, he said without preamble. I told him everything: the missed anniversary, the fight, Ethan's comment about it being a mistake. Okay. First of all, Marcus said when I finished, you weren't wrong to be upset. You have every right to expect consideration from your partner. But there's a but? But I've known Ethan for years, and when he gets overwhelmed, he says things he doesn't mean. Especially things designed to push people away before they can hurt him. So what am I supposed to do? You're supposed to decide if this relationship is worth fighting for. And if it is, you fight for it. You don't let one bad fight destroy what you've built. After we hung up, I sat with Marcus's words. Was this worth fighting for? Despite the hurt, despite the anger, my heart answered immediately. Yes. I texted Ethan, we need to talk. Really talk? When you're ready, I'm here. He showed up at our apartment that evening, looking as rough as I felt. Dark circles under his eyes, rumpled clothes, defeat in his posture. I'm sorry, he said before he was even fully inside. I'm so sorry, Adrian. You were right. I got caught up in everything and forgot who matters most. And then instead of owning it, I lashed out and said horrible things I didn't mean. And after a moment, he sat beside me close, but not touching. Like he wasn't sure if he was allowed. Tell me what you meant, I said. Not the angry stuff, but the real stuff underneath it. Ethan took a shaky breath. I'm terrified. This music stuff, it's finally happening, and part of me keeps waiting for it to fall apart. And US, this is also finally happening, and it's the best thing in my life. But it's also scary, because I could lose it. I could lose you. So you tried to push me away first? Yeah, classic self-sabotage. He finally looked at me, and the pain in his eyes was raw. I don't want to lose you, Adrian. But I also don't know how to balance everything: my music, my career ambitions, being a good partner. I'm new at all of this. You think I have it all figured out? I asked softly. Ethan, I'm scared too. Scared that you'll realize you made a mistake, that you're not actually into guys, that this was just a phase. Scared that your career will take off and I'll be left behind. Scared that I care about you more than you care about me. That's not possible, Ethan said fiercely, finally reaching for my hand. Adrian, you're not some phase or experiment. You're the person I want to come home to. You're the one I want to share good news with, and bad news with, and boring news with. You're it for me. Tears stung my eyes. Then we need to figure out how to do this better. How to communicate instead of assuming. How to prioritize each other even when life gets busy. I want that, Ethan said. I want to be better. For you, for us. We spent the next few hours really talking about our fears, our needs, our expectations. We established some ground rules, weekly date nights that we'd both protect, daily check-ins even when we were busy. Honest communication instead of letting resentments build. It wasn't a magic fix. We both knew there'd be more challenges ahead. But it was a start. 3 months into our relationship, Ethan got offered a small record deal. Not a major label, but a respected indie one that would give him resources and support without demanding he compromise his artistic vision. It was everything he'd been working toward. To celebrate, he wanted to throw a party and invite everyone important in his life, which meant, for the first time, introducing me as his boyfriend to his family. They're going to be surprised, he admitted, as we prepared for their arrival. I never told them I was seeing anyone, let alone a guy. My parents are pretty traditional. Are you sure you want to do this? I asked. We can keep it private if you're not ready. Ethan pulled me close, wrapping his arms around my waist. I'm ready. I want them to know about you, about us. You're too important to hide. His parents arrived first. His mom, Linda, warm and effusive. His dad, Robert, quieter but kind. They congratulated Ethan on the record deal, clearly proud, then turned to me with polite smiles. "Mom, Dad," Ethan said, his hand finding mine. "This is Adrian, my boyfriend." The word hung in the air. I watched the surprise flash across their faces, saw Linda's eyes drop to our joined hands, saw Robert's expression carefully neutralize. "Boyfriend Linda," repeated slowly. "Yes." Ethan's voice was steady, but I could feel the tension in his body. "Adrian and I have been together for a few months. He's my partner, and I wanted you to meet him properly." There was a long, uncomfortable pause. Then Linda stepped forward and surprised us both by pulling Ethan into a hug. "If he makes you happy, then I'm happy," she said. When she released Ethan, she turned to me with a warm smile. "It's nice to meet you properly, Adrian. I want to hear all about how you two met." The evening went better than expected. Robert was quieter, clearly processing, but he wasn't hostile. By the end of the night, he pulled Ethan aside for a private conversation that left my boyfriend teary-eyed but smiling. "He said he loves me no matter what," Ethan told me later, after everyone had left. "That he might need time to understand, but he's not going anywhere." Watching Ethan's relief, his joy at being accepted, made my heart full. This was what coming out should be: scary. Yes. But ultimately an act of trust that brought people closer together. Our 1-year anniversary fell on a crisp autumn evening. Ethan had planned something special, he said, but wouldn't tell me what. He led me to the warehouse venue where he'd performed the showcase. A year ago, the night everything had changed between us, but instead of a crowd, it was just us. The empty space transformed with string lights and candles. His guitar was already set up, and when he sat down with it, I realized what was happening. A year ago, Ethan began. I stood on that stage and sang a song about being afraid to reach for what I wanted, about living in the almost instead of the real. That song was about you, Adrian, about how terrified I was of what I felt, how desperately I wanted you, how sure I was that I'd ruin everything if I admitted the truth. Started playing, and I recognized the melody immediately, the song from the showcase. "But I've written a new version," he continued, "because we're not in the almost anymore. We're in the real, messy, beautiful reality of loving each other. And I wanted you to hear how that sounds." The melody was familiar but transformed, richer, more confident. And the new lyrics told a different story. "You shifted my world. Taught me to fall, caught me with grace when I risked it all. No more almosts, no more maybes. You're my certainty. You're my dailies. Every morning waking up next to you, every storm we weather. We make it through, you're not my obsession. You're so much more, you're my home, my heart, my forever shore." By the time he finished, I was crying the good kind of tears, the kind that comes from being completely overwhelmed by love. "I love you," Ethan said, setting the guitar aside and crossing to me. "I love you so much it terrifies me sometimes. But it's the best kind of fear, the kind that reminds me I have something precious worth protecting." "I love you too," I managed through my tears. "So much." He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And in that moment, in that empty venue where our story had really begun, I felt the absolute certainty that this was exactly where I was meant to be. Moving day was chaos, boxers everywhere, furniture wrapped in blankets, the organized disorder of two lives merging into one space. "I still can't believe we're doing this," Ethan said, carrying a box labeled kitchen, fragile, into our new apartment. "Getting a place together like actual adults. We've been living together for over 3 years, I pointed out, directing him toward the kitchen. "That was roommates who happened to fall in love. This is us choosing to build a life together." Our new place was bigger than our old apartment, with 2 bedrooms, one for sleeping, one that we'd turned into a shared creative space. Ethan's guitars and music equipment on one side, my design setup on the other. A room where our passions could coexist and inspire each other. Ethan's music career had taken off, in ways we'd hardly dared to imagine. His album had done well, leading to tours and festival appearances. Through it all, we'd learned to navigate the challenges of his demanding schedule. Making our relationship a priority, Even when life got hectic, my design business was thriving too. I'd landed several major clients, built a reputation for brand work that balanced creativity with commercial appeal. We were both pursuing our dreams, but more importantly, we were doing it together. That night, after the boxes were mostly unpacked and we'd ordered pizza because we were too exhausted to cook, we sat on our new couch, still wrapped in plastic hand, looked around our home. "Remember when you asked me to help you with that song?" I said, leaning into Ethan's side. How could I forget? He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. "Best decision I ever made." "Well, second best. The actual best was kissing you. I thought I was just helping a friend," I admitted. "I never imagined it would lead to this." "To what?" "Us living in barely controlled chaos, surrounded by half-empty boxes." I laughed. "To a life, a real, beautiful, complicated, perfect life with you." Ethan turned me to face him, his hands cupping my face with a gentleness that still made my heart flutter. I used to be so scared of wanting things, of reaching for what I needed. But you taught me that the risk is worth it. That being vulnerable, being honest, being brave enough to love, that's where the real magic happens. "You taught me that too," I said softly. "That love isn't about having everything figured out. It's about finding someone you want to figure it out with." He kissed me then, and it was like coming home. Every kiss still felt like that, familiar and exciting, comfortable and electric. We'd built something real from that first tentative request for help. We'd navigated uncertainty, worked through conflicts, supported each other's dreams, and chosen each other every single day. As we sat in our new apartment, surrounded by the evidence of our merged lives, I thought about how far we'd come. From roommates to friends to something neither of us had expected but both of us needed. "Hey, Adrian," Ethan said softly. "Yeah, thank you. For saying yes, for taking the risk, for loving me through all my confusion and fears, for being patient while I figured myself out." "Thank you for asking," I replied. "For trusting me with your vulnerability, for choosing to be brave." It's outside our window. The city lights twinkled in the darkness. Inside, we sat together, two people who'd found each other in the most unexpected way, building a future one day at a time. Love, I'd learned, wasn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about showing up, being honest, choosing each other even when it was scary. It was about help that turned into so much more. My roommate had asked me for help, and I'd said yes. And in return, I'd found everything I didn't even know I was looking for.